Peace. Welcome back to Humanity Works Podcast. I am Jahad Messiah, yourself, your host. This is the place where we bring it sexy back to the everyday hardworking men and women who impact your life within close proximity. We bring it sexy back to problem solving. We want to rise above this madness, which is called black culture. For those of you who've been rocking along with the show, man, I appreciate you greatly. If you support, man, like, share, and subscribe. Please tell a problem solver to come on in. If you are on IG, please give your boy a follow at Humanity Works Podcast. I promise to continue to upload live content there. Everything will always be the same for the same platform. It might be just random subjects over there. I've been a little bit slow over there on that social media handle, but I promise I'm gonna pick it up. Also, man, you know, the music that you hear is by my very own son, Hot Easco, man. You can hit him up on IG if you got some productions, movie scores, soundtracks, things you want to do. The boy doing some big things from what I'm understanding. Also, too, man, I am a proud supporter of the Black Student Advocate, and the number right there is 833-925-1957, and this is for teachers and students throughout the nation. If you're dealing with any type of situation with the school systems, administrative boards, you know, your student is dealing with bullying or just anything that's just causing your student a lot of mayhem rather than giving them a healthy environment to go to the school and learn. So hit them up, man. Brother Jerry L. Green is the contact that you want to ask for as well, too. So listen, today I want to get into it, right? Right now, I know everybody's watching the Super Bowl. Yes, I'm actually recording during the Super Bowl. But, you know, something's been burning on my heart for a while that I really do want to talk about. And it's the GOAT talk. Now, I, like anybody else, I love my sports. You know, I have my particular generational favorite athletes, you know, teams that I support, you know, which Sacktown fan for life, Pittsburgh Steelers, New York Yankees, Roo-rah. So, but I hear all this talk about the GOAT talk, the greatest of all time. A lot of people say LeBron's the greatest. Some people say Jordan is the greatest. Some people might even say Kobe Bryant is the greatest. I've even heard some people say that Will Chamberlain is the greatest. But a lot of people's assessments is based on numbers, right? And you have every right to feel that way if you want to, in my opinion. But when it comes to black men in the reality that we live in within this world, you're going to constantly have the boogeyman or the biggest elephant in the closet, which is a system of racism, white supremacy that we deal with no matter what you do in life, no matter where you go in life, or what particular type of activity that you're involved in life. In all 9 areas of activity, people activity, which is economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, as is written in the code by Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. But with that being said, man, you know, there's a lot of speculations of who actually really is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And I think if you ask the average person, it's going to always be based on that time era and that context. Now, my particular GOAT in particular, if we're going to have one, it's going to always be Bill Russell. I kind of take on the same thing as my father. With me, when it came to my black athletes, it was always about what they did off the court. It wasn't always about what they did on the court, which made them mean to me. You know, so standing up for social injustice and issues that we have to tackle as a people in our community. What greater platform could you have than that of a professional athlete, that of a movie entertainer or actor, that of a rapper, or, you know, just any particular artist or anybody who's involved in the arts to where you have celebrity status, right? And the reason why I say that is because all of our athletes, they all come from at-risk communities, challenging communities. They all come from the hood. You got that same narrative of the single mom. However, there's something special about a black athlete that can look at society in the face and see the ills of society and tackle it and make it known on a worldwide scale. So Bill Russell is going to always be my GOAT. And it's always about what an athlete does off the court as opposed to what he does on the court. And I'm going to tell you why. What an athlete, a popular athlete, a polarizing athlete, an athlete who has a voice, what he does away from the game is going to always be greater than anything he accomplishes. I'm going to tell you why. See, when we talk about the GOATs of the recent modern history, the number one person that's going to always come up is going to be Jordan. And that's a fact. Jordan has 6 rings. He's never lost in the finals, right? But the reason why I always say time, era, and context is going to always have its play in this conversation Because if we're going to base the GOAT talk on who has the most rings, it's Bill Russell with 11, but that's never mentioned. Why? Because we're dealing with time, era, and context. Now, the reason why Bill Russell is one of my particular favorite GOATs is because while he was an athlete that faced many challenges, at which one point the NBA actually banned blocking because he was such a towering figure of the average player. It was kind of like at a disadvantage to the average player, which was kind of crazy. But eventually the ban was lifted. Not only that, Bill Russell, when he first got signed with the Boston Celtics, he said Boston Celtics, the city, was one of the most racist cities ever that he had ever lived in. So let's not mistake that there was not a great relationship between him and the city of Boston, nor was it a great relationship between him and the fans. Now imagine every night that you're going to play basketball games on your home floor and you have to deal with your own fans who are yelling all type of racial slurs, doing nasty things to you, even vandalizing the man's home. I believe that happened in 1966. They vandalized his home, broke in, damaged a lot of his furniture, put feces on it, on the beds in his house, right? According to the history that I've read. But at the same time, you're traveling from city to city and you're facing all kind of adversities. Certain cities wouldn't let you sleep in a certain particular hotel that will be deemed as 5-star, or let you drink from water fountains, or let you use the restroom. Or a lot of times personal trainers didn't want to touch your body because you were a black athlete and they had the stigma about you being diseased or some type of pestilence human being, right? But in that time, he faced it head on. Not only that, he will always be the only player coach to win a national championship, to win an NBA Finals championship. You will never see a player coach ever exist in the NBA ever again. So when I look at a person like Bill Russell, who stood strong on his square in his time, that is my GOAT, while winning 11 championship rings. So just not even with that, we can even talk about football. Let's look at the Colin Kaepernicks. Let's look at the Andre Hawkins, who was with the Cleveland Browns at the time of the Tamir Rice shooting, right? Let's look at there were other brothers that was in the NFL who faced a lot of adversity because they stood up for social injustice, correct? And I always go blank when I go live, man. It's more challenging than you think. But when we look at the athlete, in my opinion, my greatest GOATs, my athletes are going to always be black men who stood up in time of adversity, who stood for what they believed in and in everything that they saw. So we look at today's athlete, right? Highly revered because of numbers. But at what point do black men, or are black men, going to come into a serious conversation about solving our problems? It's okay to be passionate about sports, but when will we become passionate about solving the problems? And it's amazing to me when I look at a person like a Kwame Brown, who probably did not have the best NBA career. But Kwame Brown has been proven to be one of the most brightest, sharpest, intelligent black men that I've ever listened to across a microphone, on a podcast, or on any type of platform where I can actually hear how this man thinks, right? But people will not ever respect this man and continue to call him a bust, all because of his NBA career. All because he didn't perform as an athlete, according to many people. Even when this man has told you the inside stories, a lot of things that he was dealing with psychologically, being a teenager, going straight to the league, never even seen the day of college. So much pressure was put on him, right? Which there's been a lot of guys who've been drafted, NFL, MLB, NBA, who didn't pan out, but very few were called a bust. But even to this day, I notice with our people, with today's people in society, you love your athletes based on the numbers. You don't love your athletes based on the problem solvers and the social issues that they tackle. And it's a different time and era. So if we were to go back to 1967, June 4th, where they had a summit, I believe it was in Cleveland, for Muhammad Ali, for his protest of not going to the war. And every single athlete that he knew that he was close to, from Bill Russell to Jim Brown to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, they stood with him in solidarity. Do you see that nowadays? When Kyrie Irving took on his own stance about the vaccination, did the black community, the majority of the black community, stand behind him? Most of you Negroes were talking about he needed to shut up and dribble, which was the same thing that white America was telling the black athlete. And that he's just ungrateful. He gets millions of dollars. Why don't he just go out there and do his job? He stood on his principles, something in the 60s and 70s that the community admired their athletes for. But this is a different time and era. We're dealing with a different type of community of black people whose values have drastically shifted to a level of mediocrity, if you ask me. So when you look at those brothers back in the day, yes, they were reverenced and loved because of their skill set, whether it was the boxing ring, whether it was the baseball diamond, whether it was the NBA hardwood court. our people, the black community, embraced the athlete that had enough nuts to stand up in the face of social injustice, in the face of white supremacy, racism, right? So now one part of codification is standing in solidarity. So when we look at the athletes, when we look at all these guys that went through what they had to go through professional sports, how often did black athletes stand together with black athletes? Need I mention Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf? Need I mention Craig Hodges? Need I mention John Carlos and Tommy Smith? Do I need to mention the Syracuse 8 that have mysteriously slipped away into history and people don't even remember what happened with these 8 brothers that attended Syracuse University on the football team? So when we talk about GOATs, I need you to define what exactly is your GOAT, because my GOATs not only performed on the courts and on the playing fields, but my GOATs performed in life. Now, if I was to have to have a modern day GOAT, I would have to go with LeBron James. And I'm going to tell you why. Has nothing to do with LeBron James breaking the all-time scoring record. Has nothing to do with LeBron James being a man who has made it to the NBA Finals almost, 8, 9, 10 years consecutively. Has nothing to do with that, right? We already knew LeBron James was going to be who he was in the NBA. I'm going to tell you when I became a LeBron James fan. When he first went and left for Miami, which has shocked so many in the black community, the hate, the racist tone that he received, it shocked a lot of people because they still think we live in some type of post-racial society, right? It didn't shock me one bit, one iota. But his first game back in Cleveland, and we can all remember that game because it was a high-profile game. Sports bars were sold out. People had watching parties. And Jeremy Schaap was interviewing LeBron James outside the locker room. Now, mysteriously, I cannot find this interview, but I distinctively remember clearly before the game on national TV, Jeremy Schaap asked LeBron James, do you want to take back your comments that race matters in America? LeBron James said, no, I do not. And no, I will not. When he said that, my heart was filled with so much joy, because now we're dealing with today's athlete who has no heart, no nuts, no backbone, no nothing. But they have a voice but refuse to use it. Why? Because of fear of being blackballed. So when he said that, LeBron James, understanding his power to the league, knowing that he's a cash cow, knowing that people pay to watch this man, knowing that people make it home to work as soon as they can to watch this man, he used his power of his likeness and image and his name to stand on the truth, regardless of your opinion of LeBron, because he is actually one of the most loved and most hated athletes of all times. Now, I don't want to make this a LeBron James type episode. This is not about that. This is about making the point of the athletes who I would consider in my time to be the GOAT. And then after learning of that, I started to do more research, and I learned how he invested his money in inner city youth and programs. And I love the fact that he's married to a black woman. And I love the fact that he's a great father. And this guy been in the league and he ain't never been caught up in any scandal, never been caught up in any BS, paternity suits, outside stuff outside his marriage, right? And then I'm not saying he's the perfect person, but at the end of the day, he's a problem solver. He built the school. Now, a lot of people say, well, his white kids go to school, got white teachers. Listen, I always tell y'all, don't ever get attached to the color, get attached to the result, right? How many other guys in the NBA actually took their money and built a school to benefit the upcoming youth that's going to be the future leaders of our generation? Not many. So, and with that said, being smart and intelligent enough to put his closest friends through college to manage his money, learn how to market and get things done, and then start a sports agency with a good friend. This is what I call a problem solver, because now you're going to be dealing with athletes that you can relate to on the level of value because you know where they come from, as opposed to dealing with other sports agents who look nothing like them, that only see you as a check. This is big and this is phenomenal. So when you look at what you call a GOAT, I think you all a little bit misconceived, right? There's a difference. See, you got GOATs and then you got the greatest of that era. See, a lot of what y'all talking about are GOATs, G-O-T-E-S, not GOATs, G-O-A-T-S. See, time still exists. We don't know who's going to come down the pipe 20, 15, 30 years from now. Right? The world never thought they would see a Jordan after they seen Kareem and Magic. The world thought they would never see anything like a LeBron after Jordan. So we don't know what's coming down the pipe. So the GOAT talk is all based on time, context, and era. So, but what you're talking about, if we're going to have a real discussion, is GOATs, the greatest of that era. And now you can have that conversation. However, moving forward, the athlete of today is more skilled, more polished, bigger, faster, stronger, right? A lot of people will say if the former NBA, former NFL, and to a degree, former MLB, Major League Baseball, was to play against the top talent today, they'll get demolished. And I can see where that argument can have a valid point. Now, while athletes have evolved physically and have changed the game physically, the one place where they stopped progressing and where they digress was mentally. So when you talk about your athletes, what do you really hold them accountable for? Is you just happy and you like them because they averaging 30 points a night? And second of all, are you smarter than the narrative? Many of you all are not. And I love head coaches like Don Staley, who will not allow a coach of a prominent PWI who has been a winning coach. She wouldn't allow him to smear her legacy and talk about her players. How many black men do that for their players? How many black head coaches do that for their players? So for me, my goals ain't always about what they do as far as the numbers wise and what they do on the court. My goals is about what they do as a man, as an icon on the court. Bill Russell said it himself. What you do in sports makes you a legend. What you do off the court makes you an icon. Now go and examine the one that you call a GOAT. Are they a legend or are they an icon? There's a difference between the two. LeBron James, in my opinion, in the modern era, as a GOAT, the greatest of this era, he's an icon. Are the other greats that you name, are they icons or are they just sports legends? We have to really examine this, and we have to really realign ourselves as a people, and we can change the algorithm with our athletes. Today's athlete needs to learn how to stand in solidarity. The league don't exist without black bodies. Don't nobody want to sit there and watch fundamental basketball. Don't nobody want to sit in the stands and watch boring ass football with no hard hitting tackles and great throws and scrambling quarterbacks, which the black quarterback was demonized for that. Now today is Black Sunday. We got two black quarterbacks going against each other. That's a great thing. That's history, right? But at the end of the day, we know that we still have a lot of problems. How many of the brothers stood with Colin Kaepernick, man, when he was on his stand to deal with police brutality, and he got criticized so much, blackballed. I mean, it's no doubt about it. Yeah, he got a check. He's gonna be okay, right? But did the police killings and brutality stop? No, they did not. But yet he was criticized for so much. Or let's look at Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, who would not salute the American flag for what he understood it to be. He was ostracized. He was ridiculed. He was neutralized in certain areas in the league and pretty much blackballed. Now, there's a documentary out about the brother called Stan that you need to go check out that's now streaming on Showtime. Those same people years ago who had an issue with Mahmoud Abdul Rauf now embrace him and love him more than ever for what he stood for. He's going to be an icon. Or let's look at Muhammad Ali when he went and go to the Vietnam War in the draft. In that time and era, he was criticized, ridiculed, right? And eventually they were going to incarcerate him and ban him from boxing. But he stood his ground. And he's known as what? The greatest of all time according to boxing critics, right? He was hated in his time, loved when he passed. Same thing. All the black athletes who were hated in their time of being, hated during their time of relevance, hated during their time of trending, as my good friend Calvin would say. They were hated, but now they are beloved today by the sports world and will forever be remembered in time for what they've done. Why didn't the black community get behind Tommy Smith and John Carlos when they lost everything? When the United States government was really attacking them, or to the point where they were broke. All these guys who have been blackballed and went through something because they stood up all went dead ass broke. And we talk about how great of a community that we are. Why didn't we band together as a people and see to it that those who stood for our causes were at least decent and well enough with food, clothes, and shelter? Darren Wilson murdered Michael Brown in cold blood back in my hometown of St. Louis. And the people that believed in white supremacy had $300,000 in the GoFundMe account for this motherfucker. And we can't even stand by those who will stand in the face of injustice, even with no violence involved behind it. Again, I'm going to ask you, what really is a GOAT? What do you define as a GOAT in the reality that we deal with as black people and black men in a system of white supremacy? Everything that the Williams sisters went through in the world of tennis, they were dominant. These problems should have long been solved. But we still deal with it because as black men, we don't want to have real serious conversations. And is it the responsibility of professional athletes to solve our problem? It is absolutely not. This is why people need to stop saying what Michael Jordan did or didn't do. It wasn't Michael Jordan's responsibility to solve the problems of all people. We can't always continue to expect our athletes, entertainers, and people with money to solve the problems of the many, because you got money too. So we're going to put it on a certain group of people who are of a different tax bracket to solve the problems. And we spend almost $1 trillion a year in consumption, and we expect professional athletes to do it. No, it's your job to do it. But I do expect my professional athletes of stature and of status and of power to speak up and stand together in solidarity. I don't think that's a tall order. So as far as for my GOAT, which is Bill Russell, on today, I want to say happy heavenly birthday. Ain't that something? The irony of me recording this episode on this day and everything going on. What time is it? It's almost 7 o'clock. An hour's gone by and the Super Bowl's been playing. But you know what? There's certain values that I have to where it don't even mean that much to me other than to put this message out in the world. I'm going to leave it with this. When it comes to us as black men, we're passionate about sports. There's nothing wrong with that. We're alpha males. We're natural born alpha males. We're natural born athletically. We're genetically superior and inclined human beings on this planet. We love sports. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great to have these sports debates, right? But when are we going to become passionate about solving our problems? And when will professional athletes learn how to become codified and stand in solidarity whenever one brother sees the light and wants to stand up and be strong? When will we get to this mindset? The other GOAT that I have that the world will never know nothing about, never made it to professional sports, I have two. My own father, Charlie Red Rooster, and my Uncle Ed, also known as a street ball legend in St. Louis, Missouri, as Hand Yard, because his hands were so big. And also the reason why they are my legends and my GOATs is because they were community problem solvers, as well as many black men in that time and era. We have to be more than boys playing a game with a big paycheck. We have to become serious about solving the problem that's impacting our community. Because the best athletes that you see, they come from the most challenging communities in America. The NCAA pulls some of the best talent out of the hood. The league that you see, all your top talent athletes, they came from the hood. So you have an obligation and a responsibility to help solve these problems. And when you have a platform and you have the opportunity to do just that, don't run and tuck your damn tail. Stand strong. If we had a code of solidarity when it comes to today's professional athlete, more guys would be willing to stand up without any fear of repercussions. As we say in St. Louis, and I think my good brother Nelly, Dirty ENT, said this: we all we got. And that's the truth. And sometimes that's all you need to get problem solved and get things done. My question I'm going to ask you before I get out of here is exactly how do you define manhood? How do you define your masculinity? What problems have you really solved? Or are you solving any problems at all? I always tell you that I value you and that I love you. And don't ever tell me anything without the proof of it being real. As far as something that you think that you know. I kind of goofed up my line there, but y'all know what I do. I typically say sometimes, you know what, I do go blank sometimes when I'm doing recordings, but you know what, I'm not gonna change a thing. I'm gonna let it run as is. So, you know, ain't no editing here. It is what it is. And see what you see. I have no script. I got no teleprompter. I just come straight off the head, and I try to write down notes, and I try to remember these things during the course of why I'm getting off what I'm trying to say. But y'all pretty much understand my point. You got GOATs, greatest of that era, and then you have your GOATs. You have your icons. Bill Russell is mine. Make no mistakes about it. Until next time, man, I'm going to catch up with y'all. Y'all stay productive, solve problems, and love on them babies. Peace.
Girls like